Welcome back to another episode of the Heatio Home Energy Show, where I'm joined again by Mick Wall. Thank you very much for coming on again, Mick.
Less scary this time, hopefully.
Definitely.
Getting into we're in a roll now.
I think you'd be like, I could definitely prefer you to be my co-host than Tom Farquhar on occasion. In the last show we had Tom Farquhar and Andy Farquhar from Ideal Heating. So I had a double dose of Farquhar on the same show. I think I had to actually stop them from mentioning their surname eventually. So no, it's a welcome break. So thank you very much for coming back. And for anybody who hasn't seen it, the previous episode we discussed with Mick went on a journey of self-discovery in the world of renewables from a self-proclaimed kind of IT geek. I think
absolutely
working in an IT department in Sheffield University, still working in an IT department in Sheffield University. But you went on this transition for transferring your home from being heavily reliant on gas and importing electricity off the grid to being essentially running off solar and using very little electricity off the grid.
Yeah, this big renewable journey, and it sort of went even further than that. I've even started taking heating training courses to learn more, and that. So I've just over the Christmas period I finished the Heat Geek Mastery and Awakening courses, which are aimed at top end heating engineers, but I just want to know how it all works, and that's just sadly me.
I love the fact that
I finished the course and it said, "Congratulations, you're in one of the top 1% of heating engineers in the UK." And I'm like, I'm just an IT geek with a website. Like,
how did I get to this?
What's happened to my life?
But I think the thing is that when I love the fact that we introduced you as you are the everyday guy. You know,
I was the everyday guy.
This is the transition, isn't it? This is the journey people go on, because the house you lived in, the life you had, and you go, you know what, I'm thinking I'm going to put some solar panels on. Yeah. And then fast forward 5 or 6 years later when you're doing courses.
When you get either solar panels or an EV, they're like a gateway drug, because you just, that's it, you're in. They've got you, and you this journey is your own journey, and it can go as deep as you want it to. But you start to appreciate kilowatt hours. You start to appreciate when's best time to use things, when's not the best time to use things, when you might find out that the grid's cleaner at certain times, and things that you'd never thought you'd ever need to know.
Yeah.
Like when the wind's blowing, you find out that things are cheaper. Electric's cheaper. When the sun's shining, things are cheaper. You can use your own. There's this whole piece around, especially around tariffs, electricity tariffs, that I imagine most of us growing up, or most of our adult life, is we paid a single fixed price whenever we used electricity through the whole day, probably fixed for 24 months until they ripped you off the next renewal time. And that's how it's always been until pretty recently, when smart tariffs become available, get a smart meter, and then a whole world of possibilities open up.
Well, just on that starting point in the journey, because a lot of people, as you say, the gateway drug is the solar, it's the electric vehicle charger, it's because all of a sudden you'll start looking at how much energy you're using and when you're using it, and trying to line it with those times. But I think equal to that, and probably something that at the moment, I mean, there's about 1.3 million homes in the UK that have solar, but there's around 21 million that have a smart meter installed. And there's my parents, as an example, they don't have a smart meter, and there's, I would say maybe on my father's side, there's still this thought process of, somebody's going to come in and start.
Someone's going to monitor when you've put the TV on.
Yeah. It's like, no, and nor would they care.
Yeah.
But there is an element there where you've got this, the benefit of having that is, you, rather than just paying your fixed fee and this amount goes out your bank account every day, if you are interested, there's apps available, and Heatio's apps coming out very shortly, where you can see your half-hourly energy usage.
But for anyone that doesn't know, the whole electricity system and smart metering is broken down into 30-minute segments throughout the entire day. So your smart meter can send back usage information in half-hour segments. So there's an incentive there on certain tariffs that have got different pricing, a bit like the old Economy 7.
Mm-hmm.
So you used to have a cheaper period overnight and a higher period in the day, and smart meters allow you to take advantage of those sort of tariffs.
If you're in like the for the benefit, if you've got a benefit that you can get from doing that.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the thing, is a lot of people have had these smart meters fitted in the home, and for clarity, the smart meter isn't, we have a lot of people that ask us, I've got a smart meter, I think it's in the drawer at home. And what they're talking, you have this display, which that the smart meter is where your mains electricity comes in.
Yes.
It's the clever bit that sits there. But if you're, as the majority of homes are in the UK, if you're on gas, oil, or gas and oil in terms of your central heating and your hot water, and you have a little bit of electricity consumption, there's very little benefit.
No, you can't
do anything.
Yeah, the gas is the same gas price 24 hours a day, but with renewables on the grid, the price of electricity can be wildly different from evening to daytime. This all started when I got solar, and it opens up your mind to actually what tariff I'm on. Is that the best tariff? And you start looking at the market, and one that really caught my eye was only sort of 6 months after having solar was Octopus had just they'd had a tariff out for a little while called Agile, which changed every 30 minutes. But the amount of information was really scarce. You contacted Octopus saying, I'm interested in this tariff. Could you tell me some more about it? And they said, back then, this is shocking for Octopus, considering what they've turned into. They sent you a spreadsheet with like a couple of days worth of information on for one particular region, like the West Midlands. And you're like, okay, what do I do with that? But
really, that was how it came out.
That's how I got into the Agile tariff, is a spreadsheet from Octopus, which people on Octopus now will laugh at that. But the beauty about Octopus is they've been absolutely open and transparent with their IT systems, in that any end customer, if they've got the technology, can go and query their systems and pull back pricing information for their public tariffs through what's called an API, which is just a fancy way of computers talking to each other. So being a bit of an IT geek, I wondered if I could query that system and get the information back. I managed to do that. Got a few days down, and the tariff at that stage had been out over a year. So then I pulled out a week down, a month down. Then I ended up with a year of this 30-minute data for Yorkshire region, and I put it into a graph in Excel. I was like, wow, this is fantastic. I might jump onto this tariff. And I thought, I wonder if I could get all the other regions. And for those that don't know, there's 14 electrical regions broken down across the UK: West Midlands, Yorkshire, South East, South West, Northern Scotland. I'm not going to name them all because I probably couldn't. But there's 14. So I ended up getting a year's worth of data for 14 different areas in these files. And I thought, I wonder if anyone else cares as much as I do about this data. So that's why the Energy Stats website sort of, that's where the seed was sort of planted. And I wondered if I could display that information for other people to look at. And it was a bit like a post-lockdown sort of project of mine. So I ended up creating this website, displaying the Agile tariff for the 14 different regions. And I thought, well, let's see if anyone logs on. And then buzz got around a few forums, EV forums and Money Saving Expert and a few other places. And visitor count just kept going up, and I was getting messages going, this is really cool. Like, I never knew about this tariff. tell me more about how it works. And like, you were almost like fielding questions that on behalf of Octopus, you're like, you should really have been talking to them. It's their tariff. I'm just sort of supplying the data. But the thing just grew and grew, and people sort of appreciated what could be possible with a smart tariff.
This is a world of innovators. You're all
And it was solar owners and EV owners and people who had already got an inkling of how the grid worked and smart meters and price per kilowatt hour. And
you did fill a gap there, because actually, you can be the greatest innovator in the world, but if you don't have the skills to actually be able to do the bit that talks from one computer to the next, the API bit that for most people would be like talking a different language if you don't know software developers and stuff like that. So the fact that you brought that to the table and into that community,
and then
you
just tried
enabled
to display it in a pretty simple format that you go on the website, you click Agile Yorkshire, there's the last 7 days, there's the last 365 days in sort of plain view, really, and hopefully in a way that people can look at. So that was going well for about 6 months, and visitors were clicking up, and I thought, with the Agile Tariff is based on tomorrow's wholesale prices, so the prices that commodity traders buy and sell electricity at. So if it's a windy day or a windy night, the price will be low. If it's a still day with no sun and there's a high demand on the grid, the price will be high. It's like anything, isn't it? It's sort of buy high, sell low. Is that the other way around? Whatever. So sometimes you end up with this graph where it's low through the night, it goes up and comes down. But people were having to visit the website to see that every day. So I wondered if I could get it out on Twitter every day, like just publish. The price comes out at 4 p.m. in the afternoon. Could I publish it as soon as it came out? So again, back to coding. Wife's going, what the hell are you doing? Oh, it's fine. Pulled the data that I'd already sort of pulled from my code, put it into a graph and tweeted it out. Oh, it went mental. Like, people's subscribers, like, I just created a brand new Twitter account for this, EnergyStatsUK, and the visitor number, the subscriber numbers just keep going up and up and up. And 4.5 years on, we're at nearly 7,500 followers who just want this pricing data every day. It's madness. But again, I see it as a way of people understanding energy and understanding pricing and getting into that. Again, another gateway drug into sort of how markets work and why the grid's greener and cheaper overnight, and the carbon intensity is really low. And so it opens up a world of sort of knowledge. But Octopus don't only supply the Agile Tariff. The Agile Tariff is a smart tariff. There's tariffs for EV owners that are cheap overnight and expensive in the day. There's tariffs for heat pump owners that have different changes during the day. There's one for battery owners. So people then started saying, have you got the information about this tariff and that tariff? And then, so over the years, I've added more and more Octopus tariffs because they're all basically just contactable via the API. You can pull all the data back. So I've now got, it's probably about 7 or 8 tariffs for 14 different regions in the UK, going back years. And I've just got all this data just sat here. And it's just, so you can go on my website now, and if you want to look at the tracker tariff and see how that compares to the Agile tariff, you can do that, and it'll show you a graph with both of those on. But I'm not telling anyone which tariff to choose.
Sharing the info.
I'm just sharing the information that would otherwise be a bit more difficult to get hold of, and then you can make your own decisions on.
Well, it's kind of like at the moment as well, there isn't that many energy suppliers that are operating in this kind of agile
and this
world.
open and transparent way. There's an Octopus, because of this open API and their willingness to share their pricing and their information, there's a whole host of websites and apps, and there's some fantastic. I've got one called Octopus Watch. It just sits on my phone, and at 4 o'clock it beeps and says these are the prices, and you can. The guy who makes it, Kim, he's even written like some predictions for the next 2 days to say you might be better holding off if you're on this tariff because it might be cheaper the next day. And there's a whole ecosystem around the Octopus tariffs just based on their willingness to share. And I don't see that with other energy suppliers. I think they're all a bit behind the curve, really.
Yeah. Well, it's probably one of the reasons Octopus have had the level of growth that they've had, and how innovative they are, the approach that they take, but their ability to develop and deploy flexible tariffs like this have picked up, that share of the population who have started moving down this journey. These kind of 1.3 million homes with solar, the 360,000 homes that have got heat pumps, God knows how many EVs in the UK. These people have started going on this journey where the amount of electricity they consume has changed, or the amount of electricity they're exporting into the grid has meant there's a potential income stream.
Yeah.
I think Octopus has done a great job of picking those customers up by developing these tariffs and being quite reactive to those markets, whilst delivering a very good job of the day-to-day as well. But I think we're starting to see the likes of Eon are making big movements into that space as well. We've got Eon next, but I think they're starting to see an increase in the opportunity to develop these kind of solutions and deploy them into the market. So I'm sure your APIs will be expanding out because this is the way it'll go. And the thing is, there'll be people I'm sure watching this show today that they've got a fixed rate electricity tariff. They pay a fixed rate energy dual fuel energy bill where they're paying 180, 200 quid a month every month for 12 months. Covers them for the times in the winter when they're using a bit more on electricity. They might be like, why would anybody want to go on your website or your Twitter and see this information? And the reality is, in maybe 5-10 years' time, those people will be visiting these websites, or there will certainly be tools that have been developed that will optimize people's home in line with these tariffs. Because in 5 to 10 years, you won't be on fixed rate tariffs. You won't be having that kind of stuff. It will be, your home will be flexing in terms of energy consumption and when they use it and how much gets used, in line with all these, in line with the way energy is being bought, being traded, being produced.
Yeah,
it's the world will change. And
as a very simple example, the EV tariffs from Octopus have a very simple step change. So right now, overnight, there's a 6-hour period on the intelligent tariff that's 7.5p per kilowatt. The other 18 hours of the day are 29p a kilowatt. So you have this. So what you can see straight away, there's benefits to be gained from charging your car at 7.5p rather than 29p, and it's just a simple doof and then expensive.
Yeah, makes sense.
You could do that with lots of devices. You could charge up overnight. You could hot water.
It's that control, isn't it? I think that's and this is the thing people get a bit twitchy about sometimes. But I think Octopus has done a fantastic job of switching people's demand. So we're developing the Heatio home energy management system, which essentially will optimize devices in your home within your set parameters. So when you say you want it to be warm, it'll be warm. When you want hot water, you'll have hot water, and you want your car to be charged. But essentially, we'd look at these tariffs and then we'd say, right, okay, actually, we can maybe warm it up a little bit sooner, take advantage of lower costs. But I think one thing that Octopus have done is incredible in terms of the change in people's behavior.
Yeah.
Is if they came to you and said, we want you to change the way you used all these things, most people would probably fight back against it.
Yeah.
But if you go in and say,
But
here's your energy price for the next day, and it's going to be really, really expensive here, and it's going to be really, really cheap here.
Yeah. Who would? It's like going to Tesco and picking up a bag of potatoes, but it's got a best before date tomorrow, but a fifth of the price. I'm going to use them tonight. That's a no-brainer. It's sort of if something's abundant and cheap, use it, and that's renewables. Full stop.
But they've made that gap. They've made that gap so big.
Yeah. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah. Because you literally sat there saying it would be ridiculous not.
Those people that aren't on smart tariffs will come home, plug their car in at 5 o'clock when they get home from work, and some of them will start charging there and then. If they're on a flat tariff, there's no incentive to do anything else. On Octopus Intelligent tariff, you can plug your charger in when you come home at 5 o'clock, and it'll go, dude, hold on, it's cheaper at 11 p.m. till 6 a.m. I'm going to schedule then instead.
And it tells your charger to go.
Yeah.
If you've got a charger, I assume that's linked.
That's compatible to that tariff, yeah.
But it's because we were fitting a Give Energy charger.
Yeah.
And it was the first one we'd done, and it wasn't on the Octopus thing yet, but the customer really wanted it. They had the all-in-one.
Yeah, the Give Energy, yeah.
So they were really keen to have the...
But that's up to the EV charging manufacturers to get
do
on
that
board
API
and fill those. Yeah. But who wouldn't want to plug the car in at 5 o'clock and it be ready for the next day, and it always choose the cheapest time to do and the greenest time to do it? So it's a no-brainer, really.
Yeah. But take that same approach and apply it to your hot water cylinder.
Exactly.
Or your heat pump or your battery storage in your home. It's the same ethos, isn't it? You want it to do it when it's cheapest, whilst ensuring that you get what you need. So if you say, I want my car to be fully charged, I mean, you tell me if this is a function within the EV charger. But if you said, I only need it to be half charged at 50% by 7 o'clock.
That's exactly what they have to ask for. What do you want it charged, and when do you want it charged by?
So, and they'll say, right, and then leave it to us to do the rest. So if you said, because we've had somebody say, hang on, you're going to start controlling my heater. And I said, no, why can't you say, I want it to be warm between 5 o'clock. I want it to be 21 degrees. Actually, the question we're asking is warm, because people don't know what 21 degrees is.
There's a lot of difference between what people class as warm.
Yeah. So they say, well, okay, how warm do you want to be between these two periods in the day? Or they say, I want to be warm I want my heating to be on between 5 and 10 p.m.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's like, and I want you to do that in the most efficient way. Then leave us to do the rest.
Yes.
Because we'll know how the home performs thermally. We'll know the rate at which it loses heat. If they want I want my hot water to be full during these, so I've got it for these times, we'll charge it up when it's going to be most efficient for you. Because
on the last episode, we spoke about my journey along solar and batteries and water cylinders and EVs, and I've done a lot of manual intervention along the road, programming devices to take advantage of cheap things, and I've even wrote my own code to see what tomorrow's solar forecast is and what's the weather going to be, so I can charge my batteries to a certain level to leave enough so that the sun can fill them up. And I've enjoyed it, don't get me wrong, but for a box that did all that for you.
But this is for the box to come along, they needed people like you first.
Yeah, to prove that these things work, and by doing all this stuff, it can be way cheaper and way greener, and the advantages outweigh all the sort of the time sink having to do it. And for a lot of people, these tariffs that change every 30 minutes, then it's not for them. Any tariff that has some element of surprise is not for them. And that's fine. But there's a group of people out there that love that stuff. But if we had the white box on the wall that did all the working out of tomorrow's solar, tomorrow's wind, what's your average daily use, what do you need your car, what's your heat pump, and it did it all for you, then those tariffs could be for them.
Yeah.
without them needing to know that.
Take the.
I think that's the long-term future of smart tariffs, is having that manual intervention there's none required. It's all handled behind the scenes.
Well, you've got the responsive element as well, haven't you? There's the forecastable element that you've talked about there. What solar generation going to be like the next day? What's the energy price is going to be like the next day? Maybe there's periods of the day where it's going to be windy, therefore there'll be more renewable energy.
Yeah, I think that's a big piece that people are starting to get their head around, is that renewables are not flaky is a terrible word, sorry, are temperamental.
Yeah.
And there's days, like this weekend, we've had storms and it's been blowing a gale, 100-mile-an-hour winds. The price went and dropped down to 1p a kilowatt hour. Yeah. And there's even times that the prices can go negative on the agile tariff, where you get paid to take energy off the grid because there's too much. So why would you not want to get involved in that game?
Yeah. And the flip side to this, though, is there's also these responsive times. Like we've been doing some work in like demand flexibility services where it's an instantaneous thing. You know, we forecasted this, but actually we've got more or less energy than we thought. Can you turn a device on within 9 seconds?
Yeah.
Can you turn a device off within 9 seconds? You know, as in, so if you were in a situation where we've got this kind of forecasted weather conditions or whatever it might be for the next day. So all the people following and your website, EnergyStatsUK, all turn on, you know, when the energy prices are going to be at the lowest, where there's energy on the grid. But all of a sudden then maybe there's more energy being taken off the grid than National Grid thought. And they need some people to turn some devices off. That doesn't happen very often. No. The reality is there's so much on.
Yeah.
They need more people to turn stuff on.
Yeah.
So there's a world out there of this demand flexibility services.
But you flip that round, and then there's some still December days when it's cold and there's a high grid demand at 5 p.m. where they do need people to switch things off to sort of balance this sort of curve. And that's a thing that's sort of going to become more and more apparent over the next few years.
Especially
you're
if you
going to have
imagine
these wild swings of generation. So taking it when there's tons of it, but then trying not to overwhelm the grid when there's not a lot of it. I was trying to explain to a friend of mine about this whole battery and grid flexibility and stuff, and he couldn't really get his head around it. And I said, well, imagine I've got a battery and you've got a battery, and there's a load of wind, and some system somewhere tells my battery and your battery to start charging because it's free or you're going to get paid for it. He went, well, that sounds good. I says, what happens if there's 1,000 of us and we've all got a battery and the system tells 1,000 of us to do it? And he went, you could see the cogs turning. And I said, but then imagine, so we've all got, say, 5 kilowatt hours of battery in our house. I said, that's a lot, isn't it, if we put 1,000? He says, yeah. I says, but then imagine if you've got 1,000 cars with 50 kilowatt hour batteries that could all take off the grid at a moment's notice. And he went, this is how it's going to scale. And this is
your virtual power plant.
This is your virtual power plant. And this is how the whole thing's going to go. The DNO are probably having kittens about cars, 1,000 cars charging back and forward, but it's got to come.
It goes the other way, doesn't it, as well?
Yeah.
You have the ability. Certainly, I've seen with the all-in-one from Give Energy, the battery storage unit there. We've been trying the ability to push back onto the grid. So no doubt the grid will be panicking. But at the moment, when you consider National Grid last year spent 4.2 billion paying for demand flexibility services, and that's getting paid to big industrial and commercial applications. Whether that is we need more power, so go and turn on a big fossil fuel generator somewhere or fossil fuel power station somewhere to deliver that instantaneous need to the grid, or vice versa, telling big manufacturers to go and turn devices off.
Yeah.
So there's a huge amount. There's 4.2 billion that's getting ploughed into that world annually. Well, and actually, if you can start to shift that into the residential space, you can incentivize people even further to make these decisions.
Over the last 2 winters, the National Grid have been doing these demand flexibility sessions, saver sessions, what Octopus have been calling them, calling out for customers to between 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock on Thursday to try and switch things off and delay putting the cooker on for an hour, and the reward will give you £2 per kilowatt hour that you save. And this winter they've changed it so that anyone with a battery can discharge their battery back to the grid and get paid £2.25 per kilowatt hour for doing so.
Yeah.
So if you've been charging your battery on solar all afternoon, then come 5 o'clock you can send it back to the grid and you can get financial reward for that at a really high level. And that scales big.
Well, imagine if that's happening 7 or 8 times a day. You know, that's these trials now are leading into that happening 7 or 8 times a day. It's going to be happening every day.
Yeah.
And then there'll be home energy management systems like our own that are saying, we know you're not going to use all that power, or we know we're actually going to charge that battery back up again before you next time you need it. So the most financially beneficial decision to make right now is push that energy back onto the grid, then recharge it at another time. Ultimately turning consumers into prosumers, that the home becomes something that can generate an income for them.
Yeah, it's an income generator, So as part of the website, it started off being tariffs driven really, but then I started sort of blogging about my own journey, and a lot of what we spoke about in the first episode is documented on there, and I just smashed the keyboard and said, this is my battery system, and here's some photos, and it discharges at this rate, and it can do this, and here's some graphs, and here's the data, and if you enjoy that, there you go, take whatever you want from that.
And what is the website? Is just
Energy-Stats.uk.
And the Twitter handle? That's what it is.
EnergyStatsUK.
EnergyStatsUK.
Yeah. I wish they'd not put the hyphen in right at the beginning, but you can't go back now. So, but I've blogged about my solar, the heat pump. I've put heat pump generation, heat pump usage stats, all completely transparent and real world 1930s semi. Same with the solar, 5 years of generation and import history and stuff, just so people can find a reliable and real world source when they want to look on their journey of, because it's really hard to find. Everyone's trying to sell you something.
Yeah,
and I like to think that my blog journey it's just real world. This is what mine's done, and my heat pump in the first year wasn't as good as we'd hoped, and these are the reasons why. And then next year, we're hopefully going to make it even better. Not that it was 360% efficient first year for both heating and hot water, which is still better than a lot of people, but we're hoping for
most people don't even have that visibility. So it's great that A, you're monitoring it, but also B, that you're sharing it with people.
Yeah. There's lots of articles, and because I've now got a Valent aerotherm heat pump, I'm posting articles about how I'm finding best to use that and decrypt some of the Valent documentation, which is awful. But I'm trying to present that into more legible sort of source. So it's
we'll keep up the good work. It's been fantastic, and honestly, I think when I came across the site, I thought it was a breath of fresh air. So I'd certainly recommend anybody who's thinking about having this technology fitted in the home, visit Mick's site, EnergyStats, Energy-Stats UK.
Yeah.
Not .co.uk, just UK.
I'm getting confused. Just search Energy Stats in Google.
Yeah, I was going to say that. You'll take you to it.
Hopefully we'll be up there.
Find the right one. Yeah. And we'll obviously we'll be working together over the next few months on a few different projects as well. So it's going to be really interesting to get your insight on the work we're doing. And just touching on it there, I think another show around demand flexibility trials and the services in that market could be on the cards as well. That's going to be really good.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mick.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. It's been great.
No problem. Thank you very much.